Hello, good morning, good afternoon, dear LinkedIn Visliverse, dear LinkedIn Astronauts. Welcome to another exciting Astrato live session, this time for May. A tiny little change in the lineup. As you can see, Alexander Tor is not with us today. However, we have here today exciting Piers from London and Jane directly dialed in from Berlin. Right. We have a lot of things we want to go for today. As always, it's a live webinar, so we keep things a little bit informal. Things can slip, but other than that, it's a fun exercise for us and hopefully for you guys as well to see what's been happening in the Astrato community, what we've been working on, and what we have shipped and are planning on shipping. So before we get started, there's been a couple of questions that people have been asking me, which is, how do we make sure that we ship the right features, and how to make sure that we ensure a consistency of features being shipped in a regular phase. And to do that, it's very, very important that you dress up the right way. So here's my secret sauce. It all starts with sunglasses that I have on my desk, a captain's hat, and a pipe. So guys, let's get going. Let's ship some stuff. Over to you, Jane.
All right. Okay. So first we want to talk about what Astrato Community has been up to. And we've been doing a lot of contests lately. You might notice we said contests. We've been doing 3, and we've helped sponsored 3 with Onyx Data, March, April, and May. And our very own Industry Solutions team was actually part of the judging panel for some of them. Down below, you can see some examples of what people have posted. This is all using Astrato Analytics. And we've had 2 of our VisLib legends. They've won using Astrato Analytics. And we've also had over 200 submissions, and we've seen a rise in Astrato users. And with that, we've got some very exciting news happening, which is our new contest that will be happening. Oh, sorry. First, we want to show off more in depth some of the dashboards. Here's one. It's for the F1, and this is from our first Pi competition. And finally, our Nobel Prize competition. And now we've got some exciting news. We'll be doing an Astrato Good Biz Challenge. What does this mean? So we will hopefully have people submit some awesome dashboards showing us all of the different things that go into pollution and kind of what makes a company, have a high emissions level, etc. Totally depends on what insights you guys find. You hashtag data for good, and we'll see your announcements. Stay tuned for more details, but just be warned, our prizes have gotten bigger and better this time around. We are finalizing everything. Please stay tuned for more announcements to come. And next, we'll be moving on to our product updates.
Awesome. Thank you, Jane. So we have a lot of features to cover in this section, so I'm going to try and rattle through the first 6 before handing over to Martin. So, right, where do we start? So we've added into the product during May the Astrato pivot table, which is a really exciting capability for us to include. It's one of the kind of the core visualizations that lots of people use to express large volumes of data in a really productive and convenient way. It helps you be able to find outliers, be able to drill from like high level metrics into lower level metrics as well. So we've added this in. We've made this a really easy to use pivot table, but also providing lots of features around styling as well. And all of this is based on the live query, so generating SQL behind the scenes and pushing that down to the data sources. So with that, let's get started with creating one. So let's drag a pivot table onto my canvas and start adding some content to it. So first of all, I'm going to add the measures I want to work with. So I'm going to go with my sales amount, and I'm just going to go with a sum of this. And I'm also going to add on a count of my sales order key, which I will find here, my sales order number. And I just want to get around a count distinct of those. So I'm starting to build up the table with the dollar amount and the volume of orders that I'm adding to my table. But to make this a pivot, I need to add more values to it. So let's add the rows first. So for rows, I'm going to go with the country grouping. So this is like my territories, the countries that I'm working with, or the regions. And then let's add a layer below that as well. So let's add the country in each region too. So the country field below it. So now I'm starting to build out something that looks a lot more familiar as a pivot table. So I can expand open on Europe if I want to here, and I can see the countries within it. And now let's do the same for the columns as well. So going across the top, I want to quickly add in the product category. So now I'm able to start to slice and dice the data that I have across a large volume of data, but really bring that into either a simple summary form or start drilling into some of the specific values on particular regions. Now, everything I have here is text at the moment, but we want to allow you to style it and apply different ways of demonstrating the data values in these boxes. And we've added a whole bunch of capabilities to help you format that. So I can also maybe, instead of having something represented as text, I could use maybe a progress bar or an indicator or an image instead. I'm going to pick a progress bar on this one, and I can control a few of the settings on here. So I can try to look at, where are the sales kind of in a target towards, say, 10,000 orders per region. And again, this filters automatically down through into those as I start to expand the elements of the pivot table. We let you control pretty much everything within the pivot table from a style perspective. So if I want to start changing my font sizes, I can do that. If I want to have different background colors or different styles applied at different levels, I can do that. And in addition, I'm also able to apply conditional formatting on some of my values as well. Now, I could spend a lot of time exploring those settings, but sometimes it's nice to just see one that we made earlier. So here's one that Piers was building earlier, where we've applied a little bit more color. And this shows some of the value of having a pivot table with this kind of functionality is, in this instance, I'm seeing things like discount levels that have been offered on certain product lines. And I might want to find out, are there any outliers in there? So in my East region, I can see that the discount for office supplies is 14%. But if I expand that out using the colors, I can start to find out who's getting a bigger discount and what do I want to do about that? Do I want to find out if there's a business change I need to make as a result of that? So a really great way to go across a large volume of data, beautifully represented, to give users the best experience possible on working with their data. Okay, so pivot table done. Really excited about that one. Next, I want to talk a little bit about some changes we're making for making it really easy to work with dates, and specifically parts of dates. So quite often in your data set, you may have a date field in a table, such as an order date, as I'm going to work with in this instance, and it's a plain date, and you don't have any other dimensions in your data source for things like month and year and so on. And whilst I could go back to my, my Snowflake instance in this case and change those values or modify my SQL, we want to make that easier for the user in the dashboard. So what I can do is, with these new features we're adding, is automatically apply groups on top of date values. So I'll illustrate this with a line chart. And if I wanted to look at, say, my sales values over time, then I can apply my order date. I can spell order date as my dimension, and then I can add again my sales amount so that I can look at the sum of sales over time. Now currently I have one value for every date, and I've got a big data set, so it looks kind of messy, and that's not really going to help you with what I want to show. What I would like to do is look at this maybe by year, month. So I've got this option here called grouped as. And if I specify grouped as and choose the value, I'm going to go with month and year. I'm going to apply my date format to it so it shows the way I like it. And now I'm very quickly able to use a single date value to display it using a different type of grouping directly in the UI without having to change anything in my SQL. Really powerful, really easy to use. We're going to keep adding different types of groupings and formats over time to give more control. But also, if you do have those date values in your source system, then we can make use of that as well. So again, really focus here on being SQL free for as much as possible to make the product easier to use and faster to use for builders. Okay, next feature to show is improvements to the text object. So I have bubbles, and I'll explain the bubbles in a moment. But what I'm going to show is we've had a text box as part of Astrato for a while. What text is often used for in more guided dashboards is to explain a little bit more about how you could interpret the data, or how explain what's behind some of the visualizations. And that means that sometimes it's not just used for labels, it might be used for larger blocks of text and also as more of a style component. So we've added more capabilities into the text box to allow users to do that. So let's take a look at a few of those. So I'm going to drag a text box onto the screen, make it a little bit bigger, and I'm going to paste in a chunk of text I took from the BBC Sport website about the Grand Prix at the weekend. Now, what I might want to do when I have text like this is start formatting it and placing it in different ways, or make it a little easier to read. So we've added things like the ability to wrap and unwrap the text as you need to. We're also able to change the line spacing. So if I have a busier piece of text, I can make it a little easier to read on the eye. Again, this is responsive, but I can override with fixed sizes as well. And then when it comes to the layout, I'm also able to do some things with the styling. And this is being consistent with some of the other changes we're making in the product too. So for example, I can apply a blur to the background. And where that becomes really useful is when I start to overlay the text over existing objects. So if it was overlaying a chart or an image, I can still have that blur fade through the object without having to apply a harsh background. And again, that gives you some real nice styling capabilities when you're working with text boxes and having multiple layers in a more detailed view of a dashboard. And then the final thing is adding bordering support on for text boxes as well. So, I can apply a 3 pixel with, say, some 3 rounded corners on as well, just to make the box pop out or stand out as well. So lots more capabilities on top of the text box. Again, really focused on helping creators illustrate and provide instructions on top of their dashboard as well. Okay, so on to the next one. So one of the new features we've added when you are building more kind of pixel perfect and detailed level dashboards is the ability to control the size of the canvas, but still remain responsive. So as an example, I'm going to switch to a dashboard here where I have a little bit more happening on the screen. And you can see I've got some images that are laid out in a background here and some text and line objects that help me illustrate the information in a really nice way. But what can happen, or up until now can happen, is when you start to maybe display on a slightly different screen, some of these objects start overlapping with each other because the responsive elements cause that to happen. And you don't want that. You want to be able to build to exactly how it's going to display. So for example, if you were going to display this on a particular TV screen in an office or on a particular form factor, you want to control and be sure that it looks the same way all the time. So what we've added in is the ability to lock the aspect ratio of the sheets. So I can choose from a number of predefined settings like 16:9, such as a TV, or apply custom settings as well. And what this means is when I resize that screen, the aperture for the sheet itself stays consistent. So it's still responsive, it still changes to fit the space it has available, but it increases that ability to be more precise with your layout when you're going between when you're building and when you're displaying on your final form factor. Okay, great. So on to the next one. So one of the capabilities we introduced in some of our previous sessions was in Strato embeds. And what this allows you to do is to take some content from a Astrato workbook and place it inside of another application. So what I was able to do is to right-click on some content and generate this embed link either for an entire sheet, one specific object, or a group of objects, and have that as essentially as a fast link to embed in something else. What we've added in recently is the ability to include filters as part of that link. So, for example, what I can do here is I can just select one of my customers. So I've now filtered down to my Aaron Bergman customer, and you can see that my visualizations have changed. And when I generate my group embed link now, I can choose whether I want to include the filters as part of that. So if I click on create, what you can now see in this little text snippet here is that it's included a filter as part of the Astrato URL that we've created. Now, that I could do if I was sharing, a specific view somewhere, but we can also use that same structure to be quite smart with how we interact with systems outside of Astrato. So to show that, what I'm going to do is jump over into my Salesforce instance. So here I have a trial version of Salesforce running. And what I can do now is use this to show how you can infuse analytics that are live query from Astrato directly into a tool that you use as part of your business process. So what I can do, for example, is I can create a Astrato tab inside of Salesforce and show an entire dashboard view directly, so a user doesn't have to leave their sort of daily tools of choice, but still get access to a full dashboard. Now I've applied no filters here, so I'm just seeing the whole summary. But where we can start using these new embedded filters is to start passing data values from an external tool like Salesforce into the Astrato view. So if I go and look, for example, at my accounts, and I have 3 accounts in here, and if I was to look at, say, Alan Dominguez in my Salesforce instance, I'll also get the embedded Astrato live query data filtered just for Alan Dominguez. So I've included a very simple table and some summary data here, but you can do all kinds of things to help show additional value and analytics on top of values so that you can maybe help a salesperson make the right choice about which products to offer next, or a churn risk, or something that gives more context to the user of Salesforce in this instance. And just to show it's possible to filter by others, if I go and look at one of my others, so Tracy Collins here, and I automatically get the view regenerated to only show the order details and summaries from Tracy Collins as well. So really easy to use, generate a link inside of Astrato, embed it straight into Salesforce, no coding required at all to do this integration. It's all a case of links that are copied and pasted into the right places. It's a really powerful way to extend analytics out into business processes. The same approach can be used for other systems as well. So anything from a HubSpot to a Confluence, all possible using the Astrato Embeds feature. Okay, final feature to show. Now this one takes a little bit more explaining. So one of the capabilities that we have as part of Astrato is our integration with single sign-on. So you can use your Google accounts, your LinkedIn accounts, your Okta accounts to log into Astrato. And Snowflake has similar capabilities as well, so that you can have a single authentication provider to log your users into the Snowflake world as well. What we've added into Astrato now is what we're referring to as pass-through authentication. What that means is that the same login context, so once I've logged in once, that context will be used in the data connections when we connect to Snowflake. So what that opens up is the possibility for me to change the experience that I get in Astrato based on the permissions that are set inside of Snowflake. So one place to control permissions, always in the data source in Snowflake in this instance, but surfaced through the Astrato product. So let's show how that might look in reality. So I'm going to log into Astrato here, and I'm going to log in here, and you can see I'm logging in as an admin user account. So I'm going to click on continue. I'm going to be directed off to Okta to sign in, and I'm going to log in as this more senior user, someone who has access to more of the data. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my Snowflake single sign-on application. And here I have a very straightforward, simple dashboard that shows me sales summaries from different regions and countries. So here I can see all of the countries available in my data set. I can have full interactivity. I basically logged on as someone who has rights to see everything. So what I can do using Snowflake is to apply essentially a set of security rules to the data that will say things like, this user can see all of these territories and a different user can only see a subset of the territories, essentially giving me the ability to do row-based permissions on data in Snowflake. So what does it look like if I log in as a different user? So I'm going to switch over to a little incognito tab just along the side here so that I can log in as a different user. So again, I'm going to log in, and you'll notice here I'm just logging in as this viewer account. So someone with lower rights within my Snowflake instance. I'm going to click on login. I'm going to get directed to Okta in this instance to sign in. I'm going to put in the right password and click on sign in. And again, I'm being logged into Astrato. I'm going to open up exactly the same dashboard this time. But what I am expecting to see now is a little bit less data because that's the way I've configured my environment. So exactly the same Astrato dashboard, just applying the security rules that are granted in Snowflake, which means this user only gets to see a particular region. So that's really powerful in that I can build one thing once. I can trust the data that's being provided to me. I can apply the appropriate levels of security for different users. And that approach means that I can either just secure which tables a user might be able to build dashboards on, or I can, at a row by row level, decide which rows a particular user should be able to see so that I can apply the right level of knowledge within my organization or avoid distraction from looking at a different region if necessary.
Joe, this is amazing. So let me get this straight. Can we see the screen again? So that you just shown. So is this the same dashboard?
Exactly the same dashboard. You can see, if you're attentive, you can see the URLs are exactly the same on both sides.
So the same dashboard, the two different views from the same dashboard, which means because we have two different users with two different permission levels using it. How's that implemented in Astrato? Like, don't you typically implement security in your BI tool?
Not in this case, no. So we have implemented none of the security inside of Astrato other than making sure that Astrato is using the same single sign-on source as Snowflake is. So our users are essentially the same between both platforms. All of the configuration in terms of which users get to see which data is controlled at the source. So you define it in one place and you're able to reuse it in your BI tools.
Okay, so security is defined in Snowflake globally for the whole organization. That's where data governance takes place. And Astrato just takes that model and shows you only the data you're allowed to see.
Correct.
Without having to replicate any security model whatsoever.
Absolutely.
Play the data where it lives.
That's right.
Got it.
Awesome.
Thank you so
Great.
much.
So that's me done. I think it's now over to you to show the next ones.
That is wonderful. Thank you so very much. So, well, I don't know how I can fill issues. That's a very, 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 very big advancement. So literally in the history of analytics and BI, you constantly had to replicate security models, maintain another list of users, whereas now you just propagate this and let the data storage manage all that for you. And I think that's generally our vision for the new modern data stack, to play the data where it is and leverage it. So can my screen be shown, please? Coolio. So a couple of more perhaps lightweight capabilities, but I think equally as exciting and interesting. So you can see here the lobby in Astrato. We've shown this many, many, many times. We have showcased to you the ability of customization of our dashboards. So you have literally the ability to change every single bit on the screen, on your analytics, on your dashboard, and embed it, But one thing that I always found interesting, and now that we're building Astrato, we actually have the ability to change it ourselves, is can you perhaps also control and modify the whole lobby, the whole Astrato experience as a whole. Remember, the end user doesn't care whether they're using Astrato or another BI tool. They just want to get access to their data. So over here, we have now, I think that's going to be shipped next week, in the administration section, you can go to the system settings, and you will have a whole new slot where you can change the appearance of your entire lobby. You can choose one of our pre-designed themes, such as classic. You can change it to water lemon, summer, dreamcatcher, or other more highly accessible or themes with high accessibility. But it's not just about selecting colors, but also adjusting it to your brand guidelines of your organization. So this is where you have the ability not just to change the colors, but to also upload your own logo. So let's do this. Imagine I'm HSBC. I'm banking with them myself. So I want my users internally to recognize the app. So I'm uploading my HSBC logo. I can change the size and crop it, and poof, it is now available here on the top left. I can now also play around, and I can say, you know what? I want my background color to be white, and I want my font color to be changed to dark. I just have to select custom, and here I am. The user doesn't even know they're using Astrato anymore, and it doesn't really matter for them. They're using their HSBC hub, for example. Another really cool case is, let's say I am Ford, an automobile manufacturing company, and my brand color is one that I found on the internet, 162334. Here, really, really interesting dark blue. And I would like my secondary color to be white, or actually, no, I'm going to repeat it to be the same. So let's keep it. Wonderful. And now I want to upload a Ford logo, but this time it's not going to be the colorful one, but the negative white. So I can now upload it here, and it's a bit difficult to see it, but I'm going to upload regardless and change the mode to dark. So now I have a Ford environment that, again, doesn't resemble any Astrato whatsoever. So you can completely brand your environment to whatever you wanted. You can upload your own logo and delight your users with a unified analytics experience across your whole set of cloud solutions, not just Astrato. So that's what this is all about. And very simple, but very, very powerful capability that we going to make available to you, I think, from next week. So this is lobby theming. Another interesting bit is where I think this has been one of the key elements that have been fed back to us. And obviously us as BI experts have always aspired to improve dramatically, is the measure experience. So you're familiar already with the data view editor, where you have selected your data, and now you can choose the data to create predefined expressions. You can select a field, you can choose one of the available aggregation logics, and you can add it and save it as an expression that can be reused across your dashboard. So that we do well. And what happens behind the scene is that we're basically generating SQL based on that measure expression. But there's one little thing which we've never been happy with, but we have now managing to improve, which is, at the moment, you can only add expressions with one field. But what we are now working on, and that will be introduced maybe not next Tuesday, but very, very, very soon, is the ability, we're going to update the window and with the ability to add more advanced and multi-field expressions. So this is going to be the new dialog that you can see here on the screen. Very, very similar to the existing one, but enhanced. So you can still choose a field, you can choose an aggregation type, but now you also have the ability to start combining this with multiple measures, such as, for example, a multiplication. If you want to do a sum, or if you want to multiply a count against a dollar value. And it's not just one field that you can add, but you can add as many as you like. And whenever you're adding more than one, it's quite interesting of how do you want to segregate and define the calculation logic. So, and this is where we're introducing the concept of brackets. So if you want to make sure that we first have a multiplication before we have a subtraction, I mean, that's a given mathematically, but if you want to explicitly define it, make sure that this happens first before we subtract it, you can click on the so-called brackets that will eventually bracket that expression together for you to have the ability to define more advanced expressions such as ratios, margins, percentages, or even you have the ability to divide or multiply or subtract or add together with a fixed numerical value if there's no field that you want to add. So with this, you have the ability to create more advanced expressions such as an NPS score, just by dragging and dropping and clicking in a very, very business-friendly way without having to write any code. And what's happening behind the scenes is that we are then generating SQL for you without you having to write any of that. So advanced measures will be coming very, very soon, and we'll finally feel that we can create more advanced analytics than just sum and count, and that will definitely elevate the whole Astrato experience. You see a tiny little filter here. So if you click on that, you will also have the ability to say, I want to sum my product, but only perhaps for a filtered section of a data set, such as a region, perhaps a date, or anything else that you aspire to. So that is coming very, very soon. And I think with this, Astrato will become an unbeatable BI solution on the market. Wonderful. So this is on the measures. And the last thing I want to show, I've demonstrated this last month, but I think it's important that I reiterate on this, is that we have introduced bi-directional writeback into Astrato. What does it even mean? So let's give you the experience here. So as you select data, you now have the ability also to select data that you can not just read in terms of select statements, but you can also write into, you can insert records into the data directly into Snowflake if you so have the permissions to do it. So to go back into the workbook or to create a new workbook, you have perhaps a field that is called country. And you see here, I have selected it. It's just a typical country field. And I've added an input field here, input form, directly from my data object section. It's very, very easy. You just click on it and it's being included. And what you do here is you select the table that you have write access to. You choose the field that you want to write into. In this case, it's country. And then since you have already write permission given to you by Snowflake, you have the ability now to add a new country field to the dataset, such as, for example, Bahamas. So if I click on this and I click Save, you will see on the left-hand side that Bahamas was just added. So you can now not just read data, but you can also interact with data, turn your insights into action, and write back into your dataset as per your business workflow. So example use cases are that you have a dashboard and maybe you want to insert a new sales record. So you see here at the top, I've already pre-populated my name from Germany, company Astrato, and today I've sold 30 licenses for a sales amount of 2,000, and they've already been shipped. I'm saving this. So this is now being written back to, and you see that my whole data set is in real time updating with the new record that I've inserted. So you can either use it to insert new records, or you can use it also for budgeting, planning, and for goal setting. So for example, we have a target for the first half of 2022 to achieve 40,000 units of our products. And perhaps we already achieved this in May, so we still have a month to go. So of course, what we're going to do is we're going to raise our targets here to something a little bit higher. So let's say 45,000. So I can literally put the target in there, update it, and now my calculation will reflect this, and I can, here as you see, we're now at 84% of the target. Why did all the numbers here change? Because actually a new sale was made on this dashboard. So you see that this is actually all in real time, and everybody sees the same source of data at the same point, regardless from where they're accessing it. So really, really powerful, and in my view, opens up a whole new universe, not just of dashboards, but so-called data apps to turn basically your workflows into data-driven decision-making. So that's from my side. Again, reiterated Writeback, and we're working on some new use case. If you have ideas, please come. But this is really a differentiator. Writeback has not existed in any other analytics tool natively. And with this, we are probably going to innovate the space a lot. So with this, thank you very much for your attention, and handing over to Piers, who has some other really, really exciting new innovations to show. And
hi everyone. Right, so I'm going to show you some sneak previews of what's coming in our next update, and the first one is in-chart filtering. In-chart filtering is the new, faster way to filter in Astrato. So I'm going to click into various charts, and you'll see that I've selected those values. We've had similar functionality before with brushing, but now you'll see here in the top right hand corner on the filter bar, we have a new apply and cancel button. If I apply those filters, that's applying a global filter to the workbook across all sheets, and all of the charts have updated. So I can remove that filter here, clicking in there twice, and I'm back to normal, back to how I was when I landed in the workbook. So in-chart filtering makes filtering much easier. We have all of the feedback at the top, and there's no need to add filter objects. You can just have all charts on your dashboard. A nice streamlined way to style your dashboard and present it. So the next feature, this is a big one, it's Snowflake's time travel. So this will arrive in Astrato soon, next week. You might be asking, what does that mean? So time travel lets you see yesterday's data, or the day before that, before any new additions, and even before updates or edits and deletions. So we can enable that here on the right hand side. You click into the filter bar. You can of course style it with the opacity and the background blur, and I add time travel, and I can set my maximum time travel. I've currently got 2 days of data in this data set, and of course it goes up to 90 for those who are lucky enough to have Snowflake Enterprise. And I go in here, I can go 2 days back, and I click apply. And if you look at the blue values on screen, that's updating there. You can see this number has changed, this number here. Just so we can see it again, I'll clear that and you'll see those numbers increase. 171 has now become 181. And I'll do the same thing, but without date. I'll change the offset, I'll do -1 day, and I can even go back just 6 hours, simply using a slider and click apply. So I know that this dashboard, if I click refresh and refresh, is always 1 day and 6 hours ago. I know exactly where I am in time. It's almost like a playback of that point in time. So nice and easy to follow. This is particularly useful when data sets are updating frequently. It's not just a case of new things being added. You have things that are deleted as well, whether it be planning systems like I've got on screen, or sales and CRM systems where deal values are updated and customers, etc. So that is in-chart filtering and time travel in a couple of minutes, and it's back to Joe for the roadmap.
Awesome. Thank you, Piers. Really good progress on across the board on features there. Really good to see. Cool. So, but wait, there's more. Is probably the next section, which is the next things that we're working on. So we've been a sneak peek of a couple of things that are coming out in the next week or so. And now we're going to touch on what comes next. So we'll do a quick run through of some of our capabilities coming up. So around our authoring workflows. So what we're focusing on at the moment is really adding capabilities that help creators get more value out of their dashboards and make those that a lot of repetitive tasks easier. So where we're starting off with is workbook actions. So this is a way of building up a set of instructions essentially that you can attach to things like buttons to make selections, or to show and hide things, or to change sheets, really giving you the ability to set a guided path through an application. We're also going to build a lot on top of this type of interface to add in more capabilities, especially as we look at more sort of data-driven applications, essentially, in addition to just dashboards. We're also then looking at things like theming and versioning to make it more easy to apply consistent style to all of your applications. On the visualization side, so Piers kind of sneak peeked a couple of things in terms of filtering in charts and time travel, looking also at filters at the measure level as well. We're going to bring some of that logic that Martin showed around calculated measures into the workbook experience as well, so you don't have to pivot between the data view editor and the workbook when you want to make a final change. We're looking at adding in the editable table as the next element of the Writeback capabilities, so that you can do that all in line with, for use cases like commenting or reviewing particular records in your table and then marking it as, as checked if you're like, reviewing risks or something like that. So really great capabilities around that. And then longer term, or really whenever we get customer feedback around different ways of visualizations or some of the depth of features, then that's where we're going to be able to respond with more capabilities within the visualizations we have as well. Always interested in feedback, so please head over to the community, the Astrato Galaxy, to help provide that. We're already chipping away at some of the capabilities that are being requested there. And then on the data side, as again we showed a little bit earlier about calculated measures, but one of the great capabilities we're looking at adding on top of that as well is this notion of rapid data exploration. So when you're bringing your data into Astrato, how do you work with it really, really quickly? So that bit before you start building a dashboard, where you want to understand how tables relate, maybe the type of data that's in there, maybe you spot that you want to add a measure at that point, or you want to rename something, really just give you that rapid speed to be able to play with the data as it exists in your data warehouse before you start building a dashboard. So really excited about some new capabilities there. And then looking ahead from that, looking at lots of capabilities around how you handle, when you build lots of, dashboards and you have heavy usage, how you can handle change propagation and data lineage and so on. And one of the big things we're looking at right now, which is how do we apply Astrato to additional data sources? So big queries, one of the first ones we want to look at there. And again, lots of feedback to drive where we go next. And then finally, to wrap up on the platform, so I showed you about the pass-through authentication. We're starting with Snowflake. We'll also support other sources as they come along as well. Martin touched on themes. So those are coming up in our next release. And then beyond that, we're looking at additional authentication providers, but also about providing more capabilities on the Astrato side for authorization. So which content should a user be able to see, and at what time, and what roles and rights they would have on that as well. So building out some additional capabilities there. So I think that was the last slide. So really, really great summary of features from the team, making a lot of progress on some great capabilities. I hope it's exciting for everyone as well. And I think we're open to questions and Q&A on anything you've seen today.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Joe, Jane, Piers. It's actually tremendous progress that we've made over the last couple of months. If you can only think how Astrato looked like when we initially launched it in December and what we've achieved. Time travel never existed before in an analytics solution. Just the concept of looking at data and going back to one day, a couple of hours, is totally new. Without the need to do some kind of complex data modeling and keeping of historical data. So really, 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 really great and impressive. Yeah, same also the rest, like in chart filtering. I missed that a bit, but now, that's the classic experience. You want to drill down where you see something, click through it, and go to the next level. Really, really, really useful things. And one thing I want to show to the rest everyone here as well, who's still following us, of course, we're also investing in our fashion brand. Here's a couple of nice t-shirts. I'm wearing one. Here, Astrato t-shirts. Apparel is extremely important. We also want to compete with the Balenciagas and the Off-Whites of the world. So this is the new set of t-shirts that have been printed for the Snow Summit, and of course any other offline event that we're going to be doing. Very discreet, just a logo at the back. Doesn't even say Astrato. Mysterious. Everybody will want one. So keep following us, and please do meet us either in Las Vegas, or get in touch with us. Stop by our offices in London or elsewhere. And other than that, cool. Do we have any questions, Jane or Elizabeth, that can we feed in? If not, I think we're getting very, very close to the hour.
No questions as of yet. We did have one question earlier that was asked by Karen Heartless. Is the data being written back to Snowflake? We had Joe and Joachim comment that it is indeed getting written back into Snowflake.
But you can choose where you write it back, right? So there's a big people are a bit scared about writing back to Snowflake, to the source table. That's not what you do. You're not touching the source data. What you're doing is you're defining a separate little area within Snowflake, a schema or something like a folder, basically, where you can write into your user input data. And then, however, during your querying, when you're selecting the data, you can blend it within a join to make it look as if it's one blended result. So you don't have to worry at all about writing into source data, about governance and other issues, in particular because also Snowflake gives you a full audit trails of all changes ever made. And I think in combination with time travel, where you can go quickly back and forth, I think it is very, very safe to do so. Piers?
We've got some best practice and recommendations in our documentation for Writeback that covers the exact case that Martin is talking about. So do check that out if you want to write back to other tables and join that back in.
Wonderful. So sign up to Astrato, test it out. Las Vegas is in 2 weeks. Monday to Thursday is the Snowflake Summit. And we will share a link with you. I hope you can make it. I know it's short notice, but don't all great stories to Vegas begin with a short notice? I think they do. So do explore that. Other than that, thank you for your attendance. Thank you for supporting Astrato. Make sure to sign up to follow us, and shout about those capabilities and test them out. I think we're working on something really, really, really big and innovative here, something that the BI space hasn't seen before. And
we have one more question. It says, Moses has said he built some visuals. All charts were interactive except the stacked chart. Did anyone come across this?
That's Piers. Piers is responsible for visualizations. What's wrong with a stack chart? It doesn't stack.
So depending on the type of interactivity, I'm not sure exactly which one he's referring to. It is interactive. We are rolling out some. Of course, I showed the in-chart filtering. You saw the interactivity on the stacked bar chart. So if you can provide a little bit more detail, we'll get straight back to you. Feel free to use the in-product support via the chat, or you can drop me a message on LinkedIn if you want. We'll go from there.
Cool. Thank you, David.
Thanks, David.
Thanks, David. It is a game changer. Other than that, thank you for your attention, everyone. We have a busy rest of the day. Gotta get back into shipping. Captains, off we go. Ship. Bye.
Bye.